It was supposed to be just another shift-in, another long night serving polished tables and catering to wealthy guests who never truly saw her. But when a billionaire leaned back in his chair, smirked, and mocked her accent in front of the entire room, the air shifted. Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and humiliating. She stood frozen, her heart pounding, every eye waiting for her to shrink away. But what happened next would silence the room, flip the power dynamic, and leave. Everyone's stunned, because this waitress had a secret no one expected. What do you think she did next? Her name was Amina, a young black woman working long shifts at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. She had dreams far bigger than the uniform she wore, dreams of finishing her degree, of traveling, of proving that her voice mattered. In a world that too often dismissed it, each night she carried trays heavier than they looked, smiling through exhaustion. Pretending the rude comments from impatient customers didn't sting. It wasn't just a job to her. It was survival, a way to pay rent in a city that demanded everything. The restaurant was known for its elite clientele, politicians, CEOs, international investors. For Amina, serving them felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong move, one misplaced gesture, and management would replace her without hesitation. Still, she carried herself with quiet dignity, even when the wealthy treated her like invisible furniture. That night, the dining room buzzed with power and money. A billionaire visiting from overseas had reserved the best table. His entourage filled the air with arrogance, their laughter loud, their demands endless. Amina approached the table cautiously, balancing plates and pouring wine with practiced grace. She had dealt with difficult customers before, but there was something sharper about this group, something almost waiting for her to stumble. And then it happened. The billionaire leaned back, squinted at her as she spoke, and mocked her accent. His words weren't just an insult. They were a dagger meant to strip her dignity in front of everyone. The table erupted with laughter. The humiliation burned hot in her chest. But beneath it was something else. Resolve. If you were in her shoes, mocked, belittled, surrounded by laughter, what would you do? Shrink away or stand tall? Amina's hands trembled as she sat down. The glasses, but her face never showed it. Years of holding back emotions in front of customers had taught her to mask the storm within. Still, inside, her chest tightened. The laughter around the table grew louder, feeding off the billionaire's mockery. Other diners glanced over, some amused, some uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. No one ever did. She wanted to disappear. Yet something inside her refused to bow. She remembered the nights studying late, pushing herself through textbooks while working double shifts, the sacrifices she made just to stand on her own feet. She wasn't just a waitress. She was intelligent, disciplined, and more capable than any of the people ridiculing her could imagine. The billionaire wasn't satisfied with a single insult. He gestured toward her again, repeating his taunt louder this time, mimicking her. Words with an exaggerated accent that made his guests burst into cruel laughter. Each word felt like a slap, like a reminder that, to him, she was nothing but entertainment. Amina kept her composure, but her mind raced. Should she confront him? Should she risk her job? The restaurant's management wouldn't protect her. They never did. She placed the last dish on the table and turned to walk away, her heart pounding in her ears. But the sound of the billionaire's voice followed her like a shadow, sneered. Again, this time daring her. Try saying that. Let's see if anyone understands you. His guests leaned forward, eager to see her humiliated further. Amina paused. Something inside her snapped, not in anger, but in clarity, she remembered. The years she spent mastering Mandarin while studying abroad, pushing herself beyond limits most people never saw. She had hidden that skill, never imagining it would matter here in this moment. The strangers who thought her less than human. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as she turned back to face them. Every eye in the restaurant seemed fixed. On her, the laughter quieted into curiosity, the crowd sensing something they couldn't yet name. Amina took a steady breath, her decision made. The stage was set for a moment no one would forget. The billionaire leaned back in his chair, smug, and certain of his victory, expecting her to retreat in silence. Instead, Amina stepped closer to the table, her expression calm but unyielding. The laughter hushed into uneasy quiet, curiosity replacing mockery. She opened her mouth not in English, not in the accent he ridiculed, but in flawless fluid Mandarin. The words rolled out sharp and confident, each syllable striking the air with precision. Gasps rippled through the room. His entourage froze, their smirks collapsing as if the ground had given way beneath them. The billionaire's face, drained of color, his confidence cracking as her voice carried across the restaurant. She didn't just speak, she commanded. Every phrase reminded them that the woman they had mocked possessed more depth, skill, and strength than they had ever assumed. For once, the balance of power shifted, the billionaire no longer the untouchable figure towering above a waitress, but a man stripped bare in front of his peers. The silence that followed was deafening. Forks clinked against plates, but no one dared laugh now. Some guests whispered in awe, others looked away in shame. The billionaire sat rigid, his arrogance shattered, caught between humiliation and disbelief, and as the weight of her words lingered, the question burned in the air. What would happen next? Would he retaliate, or would the truth of his own ignorance silence him completely? The billionaire sat frozen, his mouth slightly open, but with no words left to throw. His entourage avoided his eyes, their laughter replaced by the sting of secondhand embarrassment. Round the room, whispers spread like wildfire, diners leaning toward each other, recounting what they had just witnessed. A waitress, humiliated one moment, had turned the entire table on its head the next. Amina didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't even linger. She simply finished her task with quiet grace, the weight of dignity on her shoulders heavier than any tray she had ever carried. For her, it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the humanity that had been stripped from her in front of a crowd. The billionaire, once towering in arrogance, sat diminished. He had mocked her accent, but in a language he could not begin to understand, she had revealed his ignorance. His silence was his defeat. His wealth, his power, his reputation, none of it could shield him from the truth that he had been wrong. For the rest of the evening, the room carried a different energy. People glanced at Amina not as invisible staff, but with a newfound respect. Some diners even applauded softly, though she didn't pause to acknowledge it. She didn't need applause. She had already won. That night, Amina walked home under the city lights with her head held higher than ever before. She had faced cruelty, and she had answered it not with rage, but with brilliance. And though the moment passed, the lesson it carried lingered. The worth of a person cannot be measured by accent, by job, or by skin. But here's the question that remains. How many more times will voices like hers have to rise against ignorance before the world finally learns to listen? Asterisk, every story we share on Black Rises is more than history. It's a reminder, a lesson, and a spark for tomorrow. If you believe in strength, resilience, and the voices that refuse to be silenced, then join us. Subscribe, share, and be part of a movement that amplifies truth and uplifts greatness. Together, we don't just rise, we rise higher.